welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, a place where I interview tech leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, futurists, technologists, thought leaders, and even the occasional celebrity about how they are leveraging technology to transform their business. And today I want to talk about the tech skill shortage, which, let's face it, is happening all around the world right now. And there are more jobs in tech than there are people to meet that demand. So wherever you're listening in the world, I want to inspire you, regardless of your background, to consider switching to a career in technology. And today I've invited Graham Hunter onto the podcast from a company called CompTIA. Now, anyone that's thinking about starting or growing their career in IT will typically arrive at the IT certification program from CompTIA. And they do so many different subjects there that allow you to get everything you need to get certified, from exploring certifications to training and so much more. So I want to talk about that. And I also recently came across a report by them called The State of the Tech Workforce. And that was focused here in the UK. But I want to learn more about which areas are thriving and which need more investment. And as I said, the cybersecurity skills gap is such a big deal right now. So I want to hear more about new initiatives that are going to help people switch into a career in tech. But before we start today's interview, I just wanted to give a quick mention to our sponsors, because this month the podcast is brought to you by Flipper, which is the #1 marketplace to buy and sell online businesses and startups. So, do you run your own online business? And have you ever considered selling your website, your store, your tech, or your app? Because with world-class combined matching technology, dedicated brokers, and end-to-end services, all at the most efficient price, Flipper is making it simple to sell your online business. So, to get a free valuation, visit my friends at flipper.com/techtalks. where each month thousands of online business owners exit with Flipper. Again, visit flipper.com/techtalks. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to beam your ears all the way to the UK so you can listen to me and Graham in conversation today about the tech skill shortage and the work that CompTIA are doing. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So my name's Graham Hunter. I'm the Executive Vice President of Global Sales at CompTIA. And for those that don't know, CompTIA stands for the Computing Technology Industry Association. And it's as a non-profit association that we kind of bill ourselves as the leading voice and advocate for the global information technology ecosystem. And I think, if you look at the 75 million tech professionals across the world, it's through CompTIA's education, training, and certification and market research that we kind of act as this hub for really unlocking the potential of the tech industry, and in particular its workforce. And it really is the outcomes that we're driving for our clients and partners that gets me and certainly the global team excited. Our clients are facing some of the difficult challenges at the moment, particularly finding, developing, and sort of holding on to the talent. And, we're laser focused at the minute with our programs and solutions in helping them achieve their goals. And that's really what gets us excited.
And there's so much I'm excited to talk with you about today, because as you said, there's 75 million tech professionals around the world, but there's also a huge tech skill shortage at the moment, and your certifications are going to play a big part in bringing new people into the industry too. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But one of the main reasons I invited you on the podcast today was I read that CompTIA also recently released a State of the Tech Workforce UK report. Can you tell me a little bit more about the report, who you surveyed, and a bit of background on it?
Yeah, sure. So the State of the Tech Workforce report provides really this kind of in-depth look at things like, the state of the employment, economic impact, those technology trends, things that get people really excited, such as salaries, what the hiring activity is like. And we do that really across the regions of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But then we also break that down into 13 metropolitan areas as well. So the report really draws on lots of different data sources, including things like information from Burning Glass, the UK Office for National Statistics, Stats, OECD, and some of CompTIA's own data as well.
And a lot of people might not realise this, but the tech industry alone accounts for something, I think, 5.5% of the UK economy, or 82.6 billion. But obviously, I'm here in the West Midlands. I think I'm talking to you in Northumberland today. Can you break that figure down into regions for me?
Yeah, so from a UK point of view, that £82.6 billion represents a contribution by 6.3% of the overall workforce, or close to 2 million employed in the tech sector, really. So I think from a tech worker point of view, the top four metropolitan areas of London, Manchester, Bristol, and Glasgow are home to more than 570,000 tech sector, or about 1 in 3 tech workers in the UK. And there are 6 metropolitan areas: Edinburgh, London, Bristol, Leeds, Glasgow, and Nottingham, that have a higher concentration of tech workers than the national benchmark of 6.3%. So I think from a tech workforce perspective, since 2016, tech employment has increased by an estimated sort of 62,000 new jobs, or around about 10,000 new jobs each year. So to me, that kind of indicates that the tech sector in the UK is strong, and is certainly growing stronger each year. And I think, having this well-trained and certified tech workforce makes a significant impact on the nation's economy. And moreover, the businesses of all sorts will need even more skilled workers if we're going to kind of maintain that growth. We've seen, a huge amount of digital transformation that was accelerated during the pandemic, and that requires a lot of capital to kind of continue to exploit that. I think what is perhaps a point to raise is that nationally, the kind of the representation of women is approximately around 49% of the UK workforce. But in the tech sector, percent of women are represented in occupation. So, this really signals an underrepresentation in the tech workforce. And if you take the US, for example, women represent 26% of tech occupations. And I think if you go back to perhaps the 80s in the UK, I think the figure was more like 25% representation for women. So in some respects, we've kind of gone backwards from those early days. So that's certainly something to point out.
Yeah, it's a shocking figure, especially when we're constantly reading about this global cybersecurity skills gap. I was recently reading that I think there's 0% unemployment in the industry, and also in Asia Pacific alone, there's going to be something like a 3 million shortfall in required people there. So it's an ideal time for anyone to enter the industry. And something I also noticed before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a bit of reading, and there's a new initiative to help those who don't make it as professional footballers into careers in the tech industry too. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure. And I think you just mentioned there that we're in the midst of this very tight labour market where we've got low unemployment and high demand for those with the right skills, particularly in the cybersecurity space. And all of this is kind of putting that pressure on businesses to find talent as they strive to grow. And, it's sometimes very difficult to think past the players that you see on a pitch playing for your Premier League side, at the weekend. And, the reality is that at this level of elite sport, the players that you see performing week in, week out can be thought of really as the top of that kind of pyramid of potential players that a club will be nurturing at any given time. And, I think some of these players are kind of scouted from a very, very early age, and they hold on to that sort of ability to be that next Premier League star, but that's not always the case. And sometimes these folks don't make it, and they have their dreams smashed. And I think through a partnership that we have with an organisation called Phoenix Sports and Media Group, with BIT Group, who are a CompTIA authorised partner of ours, working with Hack the Box and CompTIA, together we're part of this scheme which is transitioning the dropouts. I don't really like that phrase, but To those that don't really make it, a particular club, it's a small club in the northwest of England. You might have heard of them, Liverpool FC. But anyway, we were sort of working together with Liverpool, and it's really credit to those guys. It's Liverpool that, they're supporting these academy players, and they're offering the chance for them to gain some of the basic IT and cyber skills, and also look at career development. And it's really this kind of, like another example really of breaking down some of the barriers to entering the tech workforce and peeling back that curtain to say, look, here, this is what really jobs in tech are like. And I think, it's quite a progressive way. And, Liverpool should be commended to looking the technology industry really as a kind of long-term career prospect for some of these guys.
Love that. What a great story. And also here in the UK, there's a data skills gap as well. So I'm curious, what do you think needs to be done to address this?
Well, it's probably well understood by your listeners that it's not really a lack of data that's the issue, but it's more kind of the insights or lack of that the data can bring to the sort of business that is causing issues. And I think it's things like poor data management or insufficient data analysis that is impacting the bottom line, because the availability of data it's so widely known that there's data coming in from lots of sources, and that's not, as I say, the issue. But I guess what this has led to is really that abundance of data, but without the intelligence. And often the data is in silos in different departments across an organization. And, there's not this kind of holistic view of how we can structure and use this data and translate that into better business decisions. So, companies are starting to feel the effects of this. And I think chief among that is really kind of wasted time. There's different pieces of an organization that have to hunt for the data that they need. So I think really increasing this efficiency has to be like a common goal, and increasing this kind of the workflow of data has to be a common goal. So by defining job roles more clearly and coordinating data sets across an organization, we think we can help drive true value and insights within an organization. So CompTIA has set out 3 certifications which speak to these job roles. The first of which was launched this year, Data Plus, which is going to be followed by Data Systems early next year, and a Data Science certification later in Q4 of 2023. And the Data Plus certification covers topics such as mining, manipulating, visualizing data, and it's aimed really at that kind of data analyst or business analyst or business intelligence analyst job role. And we've had a lot of input from the folk to try and help us guide that certification and bring some clarity to, what are some of the functions and skills that are required. So, we've had organizations like PayPal input on that particular certification. So it's very exciting. And I think, by, in some way us defining more clearly what was required, we're kind of dispelling some of, the myths around what it actually requires to be a data analyst, for example.
And I love how you're evolving with the industry needs there and helping businesses get that talent that they need. And I'm curious, you're very close to this and you've probably seen much of it before and very little surprises you. But when you look through that State of the Tech Workforce report, did anything in that report surprise you?
Yeah, I think certainly from a data point of view, only a quarter of companies feel like they were anywhere near where they needed to be when it comes to managing and analyzing data. And I think that is in part symptomatic rather of the data paralysis that's going on. It's just the availability of data. I think, the transcribing of that availability of data into insights is really, it's sort of causing folks to scratch their heads. And I think that's really the stat that stood out for me. And that says that, there's a huge amount of opportunity to help businesses, move from where they are to really starting to exploit that.
And you mentioned a few moments ago that fact there that 17% of women make up the industry in parts of the UK, which is absolutely shocking. And especially when you look at the tech industry, I think most people will say that diversity of thought is the biggest strength for a tech team, because it helps you look at problems from different angles, and it also helps you better serve your diverse audience as well. But women might feel discouraged from entering the tech industry. They may feel it's a male-dominated environment. And we've got people from a variety of backgrounds that maybe also think that tech isn't for them, which is completely untrue. So how can we increase diversity in the tech industry? Because it's needed more than ever, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. And I think there's still a lack of role models in the tech sector, to be honest with you. We just need to do a better job of telling the story from a point of view of those that look like the underrepresented, so they can see, they can hear and acknowledge that these are roles for people like them, and sort of dispel some of the long-held stereotypes and myths that are kind of prevalent in our industry. I think when I look at CompTIA and think about the foundation that we have and the programs that we support, there's a particular focus on increasing diversity. We acknowledge and we understand that this is a real issue, and we kind of want to tackle some of these inequalities and improve the representation of underprivileged students, on these programs that we have. So I think often when we've got workforce development programs that we're involved with, we're seeking funding for these programs, that the ability to unlock that funding often is based on diversity targets. And I think about some of the programs that we've delivered, the Cyber Bootcamp, which was trying to increase the capacity of cyber security analysts into the UK market. This was supported by the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport in the UK. And, we were specifically asked to look at gender, ethnic and socioeconomic diversity. And so we couldn't get access to that funding unless the program that we created was specifically targeted towards that. So I think that's one example. We're collaborating also with Out in Tech, which is one of the world's largest communities for LGBTQ plus tech professionals. And again, that's kind of, that's been set up to seek greater diversity and inclusion in the workplace. But, I think every opportunity that we have, we're trying to kind of champion the increase in diversity in the tech sector. And I think I really kind of commend the likes of DCMS for pushing not only in things like gender, but also neurodiversity. I think we really want, and to your point, we really do want to have that representation right across society, because we know that diverse team really adds to the bottom line.
100%. I think we've got a great opportunity here, because there's people listening to this conversation today in 165 different countries. So for someone listening anywhere in the world that would love to begin a career in tech, maybe, I don't know, they want to just start out a career in tech, maybe they want to have a completely different career shift and enter a world in tech, regardless of their age. And maybe they want to seize that opportunity caused by the global tech skill shortage to enjoy things like a better quality of life and freedom to work anywhere in the world too. But then that little demon sits on their shoulder, convinces themselves that they're not technical enough. People like them are not represented in the industry, or any form of imposter syndrome that we've all experienced at some point. What would you say to that person?
Well, I would actually say this person's going to be okay. There's so many options for a career in technology that this person's going to find something. And I'm actually more worried about those that are not even aware of the opportunities in tech. So, those that aren't listening to this podcast, for example, even though it's being broadcast in so many countries, we kind of look at people that are career intent who perhaps are looking at other industries. It's these individuals that really we're sort of doing a particularly bad job of attracting them. I think once somebody is interested in technology, that's great. There's lots of clearly defined pathways, but it's those folks that are, we're competing with other industries to attract them into the tech industry that I'm really more concerned about. And, we're doing a bad job of converting these folks. The tech industry has perhaps the largest confidence gap of any industry, and also the largest barriers. And I think, other industries have established knowledge pathways. If you want to become a lawyer, a doctor, these are really ingrained and well understood. But, in the tech industry, we've kind of, in the wider society, we've become great users of technology, but often, folks don't know what's behind the screen, and this kind of contributes to that perception of something that is very to do or very difficult to gain the skills necessary. Perhaps it takes longer and costs more money to get into this industry. So we've really got to fight and tell a much better story.
Yeah.
And, make it more accessible. It's not about being a maths genius or a science genius, even though we've spent a hell of a lot of effort, trying to convince people to do STEM subjects. We've still not really, moved the dial on the numbers coming into the technology. So, we need to invest in people from all backgrounds. It's not just about degree educated folks, because do we want to fish in this kind of tech intent pond? So the example that you gave, people are already interested in technology careers, or in that much larger kind of career intent pond. And I think CompTIA's got a very important role to play in this. We really need to advertise the hell out of the industry and the opportunities that the industry presents, so that we can, find ways of converting these folks. Fighting for these people in this crowded, we just need to tell a much better story. And I think, this year, CEO Todd Thibodeau is really, this is kind of front and center for him. He's just launched a new initiative called Project Agora, which, it has the goal of creating this most kind of respected place to start, build, and supercharge your tech career. So, I think what we're trying to do with that is help provide a set of resources to answer some of the questions that folks have. How much does a job in technology pay? Where are the jobs? Are there any jobs around? What's the job like? Are there people like me in the industry? How long does it take to train? I think, these are all these kind of questions that people ask, and we need to start to provide much more insight into that. So we're looking at profiling around 200 jobs from, with the help of industry folks, so that we can have a broad set of talking heads that can help tell that story.
And your passion for making a difference and telling that story at CompTIA really comes across today. And I'm curious, before we let you go, are there any particular qualifications of yours that are in the highest demand by employers right now? So anyone that wants to retrain or enter a career in tech, make sure that they've got the qualifications that employers are looking for. And where would you recommend people begin on that journey into a career in?
Passion is definitely something that we've got to CompTIA. I'll say that, and I would go further to say that it's really kind of in CompTIA's DNA. We started lots of different programs across the years, and one in particular sticks in my mind, which is a program called IT. We started this about 10 years ago, and it's really kind of like this job training and placement program, which was aimed specifically at the underrepresented. Okay, so we had folks that were holding down 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and they were really motivated. They wanted to change their lives, and so when this program came along, we had some very strict criteria. They weren't allowed to be late. We're trying to get them ready so that when they go to an interview process, an employer says, actually, you've ironed out all of those typical issues that we see. They're going to turn up on time. They're going to be presentable. They're going to be able to communicate. They've got the technical skills. And, as a result of these kind of 12-week programs that we ran, we're able to take folks that in some instances had never really turned on a computer before. And they were then put out in front of employers and really holding their own in job interviews for entry-level IT roles. So I think, in that sense, the scheme itself in the UK has kind of morphed and grown into something called Cyber Ready. So we looked at those kind of entry-level IT roles. We took that model and applied that to the cybersecurity analyst job role. And, again, in that program, we had examples of folks that were not being supported with their developments in their existing companies. And, we had some fantastic results. We had someone who attended our program, passed 2 of our cybersecurity certifications, Security Plus and CISA Plus, and then went toe-to-toe in a 10-step interview process with one of the biggest banks in the UK. And this guy doubled his salary as a result of that program. So, the impact that we're having as a result of these programs is there to see. We just need folks like DCMS to help fund a bit more of these programs, to be honest. Going back to your question, we have the fundamentals plus ITF plus. Okay. So that really is kind of like a great place to start. It's a pre-career certification, really. And it helps kind of students or career changers determine if they have any competency for, and if it's kind of like this right career path for them. So it's like a smorgasbord of the tech domain that covers things like IT concepts and terminology, infrastructure, cyber, software development, database fundamentals, applications, software. So it's giving you this kind of broad brush introduction to the tech industry. And in that sense, you can then say, well, do you know what? I quite like the software development piece, or data was something that was attractive to me. And then, from that, you can then bridge out into the pathways that will take you into the careers that are in demand. So we really have got a sort of shop window of all the available careers in the IT industry. So, it's a very valuable place to come and take a look at what's available out there.
Fantastic advice. I think that's so important, letting them, like you say, browse through that smorgasbord of content and then realise what works for them, what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, and then move from there. Great advice. Now, you've given advice on everybody else's career, but I want to take a little look at your own here, because none of us are able to achieve any amount of success without a little help along the way. So I'm curious, is there a particular person that you're grateful towards who maybe saw something in you, invested a bit of time, or helped you get where you are today that we can give a little shout out to? Is there anyone you can think of there?
There are many to mention. I've had a few sliding door moments over the years where who knows where I could have landed. But I think I've just recently lost my dad, and he was a very influential person on my life. But I think if I was going to kind of mention one person, it would be a very dear friend of mine who also happens to be my dentist. And I've trusted his skill, with the dental probe for many years. And I also trust him implicitly with career advice as well. And he's been at some pivotal moments, both privately and professionally, when I've had my own confidence gap, and he's been able to bring his perspective to the situation and encourage me really to take bigger risks. And I think I wouldn't be speaking to you here now if we hadn't had those moments, often over a glass of wine or two, where I've really listened to his sage advice. So that's a particular shout out to my friend, the dentist.
And I don't think there's many people out there that could give that kind of thank you to their dentist, right?
Perhaps not.
Well, before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about that report that we've referenced today, or some of the courses that we've mentioned and certifications, etc., or maybe just contact a member of your team if they just want more information, what's the best starting point for
looking personally myself? LinkedIn or Twitter, it's Graham P. Hunter.
And as a quick reminder, if you listened to today's podcast and you enjoyed everything you heard, please check out CompTIA.org, because I think the website is a great place to start on finding out more information about anything that we talked about today. Well, there's so much gold in the insights you've shared today. And what I especially love is changing that story and increasing diversity into the industry. And for anybody listening, I would urge them to check out what you guys are doing there, because anybody can enter the tech industry. It's never been a better time. There is a critical tech skill shortage all across the world. And in fact, it could open up a career that will allow you to work anywhere in the world. So give that a try. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and the opportunities available for everybody listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate the opportunity.
The main theme of today's podcast is about encouraging people from a variety of backgrounds, and people that thought that they had no place in tech, or they weren't technical enough, or all those other things that typically hold people back. Let me tell you, anybody can start a career in tech. Just need a bit of time, a bit of commitment, and the world is quite literally a oyster. As I said a few moments ago, I think there's a shortfall of 3 million cybersecurity analysts expected in Asia Pacific alone in the next 5 years. So you can have a career where you can work anywhere in the world. There's just so many opportunities out there. You just need to grab them. But I'd love to hear a story from anybody listening that wasn't from a tech background, and then they did something like a CompTIA course or any course, in fact, and then how their career progressed and how they entered the industry. Because I think those stories are what we need to hear right now. We can hear about the companies that are making it easier. We can hear about the tech skills gap. But I know so many of you listening have that little devil sat on your shoulder saying, yeah, but you're not technical enough. And I think only by sharing people from a diverse range of backgrounds that are succeeding in tech, that's how we can increase adoption. So if you've got a story like that, I want to hear from you. Simply email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you would like to slide into my DMs and send me an audio message on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, you can find me at Neil C. Hughes. I always like to finish every episode by saying technology works best when it brings people together. And the fact that you tune in every single day further proves that point. So I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.